Take it away, Matt.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Greg. And I'm happy to be here with everybody and with Keith. Super excited to share some ideas around company culture and how that can be used to overcome stagflation. So, what we'll go through today is kind of a high level overview. And I've got some interesting stats that I think you'll find interesting as well. So, we'll just go to the next slide here. So, what is culture? Company culture gets tossed around a lot. It's a buzz term, but what is culture really? There are lots of different types of cultures that have existed since, the beginning of mankind, but some specific types of culture are dependent on certain ways in which we communicate as humans. For example, internet culture didn't exist before the internet. It created a new type of relationship and behaviors and interactions that we have as humans. So it's important to recognize that culture takes a lot of forms, and you don't want to forget these types of cultures. You've got yogurt cultures and cell cultures. So sorry for the dad joke. I got to get at least one in. But so let's look at what type of definition we should consider for culture. There are lots of different definitions, but these are my two all-time favorites. The societal behavior and norms found in human societies and way of life. Culture is how we interact. Now, because that's a thing in a very general term, there are different types of culture that exists, and one of those is company culture. Now, company culture is very specific because there are different types of players in that environment. You've got employees, you've got managers, you've got the company itself as a non-human entity, right? The policies and the programs that change how employees interact. And so a lot of people say company culture is very passive. It's something that exists as a reflection of how people act, and it can't really be controlled. But I believe that it actually can. In 1948, Dr. Elliot Jacques was the first one to propose the term company culture. He's a Canadian psychoanalyst, a social science and management consultant, and he published his first book, The Changing Culture, about this specific company in Britain. And he studied this company for over 2 years and how they interacted at various different levels of management and across teams. And he actually proposed a theory of some specific characteristics or things that needed to be present in a company culture for a culture to be positive and to be a business competitive advantage. So here's the list of things that he identified: psychological safety, leadership, accountability, vision, voice, talent match, and professional growth. I won't read all of those points, but you can see them there. In my own personal research, I would add 2 additional things to the list: a purpose-driven mission, especially with millennials. They're looking to be connected to something that matters, to be connected to a company that's making a difference and doing something that they genuinely care about. And then another one is lifestyle enabling. I think that's been highly reinforced with COVID and the strong desire to work remote. People want life to be the primary focus and for work to fit into their life instead of the other way around. So why does company culture matter? I mean, we could go talk about these theoretical things all day, but really we're here to talk about stagflation and how you can overcome some of the effects of that and move your business forward. Company culture, when it's done intentionally and with strategy, can be leveraged for a business competitive advantage to overcome, stalled sales and other things that could be holding you back. So happy employees are 20% more productive and 59% less likely to quit voluntarily. Now that engagement ripples to a secondary impact for your customers. As your employees are happier, your customers are happier because your employees are taking care of them. And it's not just feel good stats of things that, oh, it's really nice to have parties and have a ping pong table. But if you can build a culture that's intentional and substantial, it equates to ROI impact. There was a study done of Glassdoor Best Place to Work companies, and they were able to average 7.4% greater return on investment than the S&P 500. So there's significant data around how company culture actually is worth the investment and worth your focus and time. So How is your culture measured? How is it perceived? Well, that's based on what's showcased on the internet. What data do people have access to make a judgment of what your culture is like? That mostly comes down to online reviews on sites like Glassdoor, Indeed, Comparably, InHerSite, and other employer branding and review sites. People use reviews for buying stuff, and they use it for where they're going to apply, where they want to work. And on average, someone is willing to take $10,000 less to work at a company that they perceive has positive culture. And that's measured primarily by reviews. So, just in closing here, how can you build a company culture strategy that will actually help you have a more positive ROI? You have to recognize a framework or build a framework of who's a part of this culture. You have to define, the employee groups, teams, managers, the larger employee community and external parties that may influence those groups. You have to recognize those different relationship dimensions that exist. Like the manager to manager group doesn't get talked about very much. The manager to employee relationship gets talked about a lot. But recognizing all of those intersections of relationships is very important to help you be purposeful in ensuring that there are good behaviors and good interactions that happen on those different levels. You have to have a system for measuring happiness with surveys and other forms of feedback, and have a standardized cadence so you can see the change over time and know what's working, what's not working, to be able to make informed changes, and then make goals based off of that data that you collect in feedback, and build new plans from there. So a company culture strategy encompasses a lot of things: total compensation, turnover, onboarding, meetings, performance evaluations. Like there's a lot that goes into it, but there's one segment that doesn't really get a lot of attention, and that's the reputation plan. And this is where I'll end. The reputation plan is something that I've spent a great amount of time studying and building out my own methodology called the review cycle. Essentially, just like the consumer experience where we go and we use online reviews to shop for products, the same happens with jobs and companies. And as we follow a model of consider a consumer or job seeker considering where they want to apply, they engage with content that a company posts, they engage with reviews or that UGC by other employees, and then they have a post decision experience where they become an employee. That entire cycle is explained in my book, and I give lots of tips about how you can very purposely create a reputation plan that will help job seekers, current employees, and anyone who happens to be looking at your online presence recognize that it's strong, that you're engaged, that you respond to your reviews, you care about your employees and what's happening with their experience. So overcoming stagflation can be done. One element is managing your company culture, understanding your employee experience, and being deliberate in making it better. So there's the spill. I'm happy to take questions that pop up in chat later on, but that is it.
Okay. I guess the first step might be to get your book. But if you, let's say if a business out there has a couple of bad reviews on Glassdoor, what's the best very first step to take to try and improve that?
Yeah. So if you haven't already, go claim your Glassdoor profile. A lot of companies don't even do that.
Good point. Yeah.
So after it's claimed, you have the opportunity to respond to those reviews, and you can go into the admin page and find that review and respond to it. If there's someone that has a specific scenario, I'm happy to help with that offline. But essentially, you want to respond to every negative review. You want to validate the claims that have been made. You don't want to validate something that's false or something that you can verify as false. Right. If there is something that's false that's claimed, you want to validate the feelings that are shared in that review, but discredit the negative claim that with information that you have. You have to be a little careful in the sense that these are anonymous reviews. Right. Even if you can guess of who could have written that review, you don't want to try to make an assumption with that. You want to just take it as anonymous. But yes, you do want to respond to every negative review and some of the positives.
That's a good point. It's a very good point. And, I guess it's just part of our modern culture that this is getting more and more important. I didn't realize that 92% of people, when they're considering a job, is going to look at those reviews. Makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Yep.
we're an internet culture now.